You released These Days as Ben Harold and the Rising in 2021, and 10 great songs on that. And you alluded to, I guess some of the guys played on that last album as well.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about the Rising, how you pulled those guys together, and just a great band.
Thank
Just a
you.
great
They
band.
are, they are
Yeah.
the best. They are the
Yeah.
best. Honestly, I knew pretty quickly who I wanted, and
Hmm.
I called up my drummer immediately, pretty quickly after we finished the album, Joe, and I said, "Hey, I want you in the band. I want
Hmm.
you as my drummer, and I want you as my producer for the next stuff."
Mm.
And he said, "Who else are you thinking of?" And I had played a little bit with our guitarist Ken in another
Hmm.
band I was in. Ken has known Joe for 20 years. They've played together. Told him Ken, that was my first one. He said, "That's the person I'd choose."
Hmm.
He said, "Who else are you thinking of?" I said, "Carl for bass." He goes, "Yeah, I see that." And we didn't meet Dan until later, so that was a
Okay.
little bit. But my main focus was not. I know a lot of really good musical people, and there
Hmm.
was a number of people I could ask, but I really wanted to find the people that I thought would really enjoy being in a band together, enjoy
Mm.
being around each other, who would complement each other.
Mm.
It wasn't so much about who's the best musician, it was who are the right musicians
Hmm.
and personalities that we would all get along and be like I wanted it to be a family.
Hmm.
You look at bands like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers,
Hmm.
and sure they had their issues with some of the members in the past,
Hmm.
but when you look at the band that they had starting in '94 and continuing on until he passed away, that was the
Right.
same band, and they
Right.
loved each other and they
Hmm.
played so great together.
Yeah.
To me, like the E Street Band, you look at these
Mm.
bands and you go like, that's what makes them magical.
Hmm.
Is there's this camaraderie, there's this the genuine love and appreciation for one another, and
Yeah.
then the musicality comes second.
Yeah.
And so I knew pretty quickly who I wanted in that band. I
Hmm.
was so thankful that they all said yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we
They.
met Dan, Dan really opened it up. And it's funny, when we met him, he was opening for us at some showcase we did. And I remembered the story as me begging him to be in the band. And he remembers the story as him begging us to let him in the band. So we all just remember wanting to. I
Yeah.
looked at Joe and I said, "I want him in the band." He goes, "That cat can play." And that
Yeah.
was it. That was
Yeah.
the selling point. And we
Okay.
haven't looked back since. He played the
Yeah.
next show with us, and that was it.
Yeah. So when did he join?
Oh, I would have been like, it was when we were first starting to work on These Days. So it would have been
Okay, so he's on the record
probably,
then. Yeah, he's on
yeah,
there.
it would have been
Yeah.
like
Okay.
late 2019,
Okay.
I want to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that seems
How
right. Or
did
late 2018,
okay. Okay.
2019, sorry.
How did you come up with the name The Rising?
I'm sure there were some influences in there. For one, I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
I love it.
I thought it had something to do. I mean, we all love Springsteen, so
Right.
you got
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
connection. But that was more of like an afterthought. And
Mm.
I think the idea of like, I saw this thing as an up and coming thing is
Mm.
it's going to grow, it's going to build. This is,
Yeah.
as a group of people, this is going to
Mm.
go places, and we're going to do
Yeah.
some wonderful things with this.
Yeah.
And so I think it just felt right. I had a
Yeah.
few other ideas, but it was the only one that really I felt like.
Yeah. I
And,
love it.
and also the fact that they take these songs and they lift them up to something so much better than what I could have done on my own.
Yeah, these guys, they
It just
shine
perfectly
through,
fit.
man. Yeah, they shine
Yeah. Oh
through
yeah.
so well in these songs, and we're going to talk about a couple of them. But you mentioned earlier, did you cut most of this album live?
Yeah. So what we did was, and going to the songwriting wise, what you hear them doing are their
Hmm.
ideas.
Okay.
I don't really always. I have a couple ideas I'll throw at them, but I
Hmm.
want to hear what they bring to the songs.
Hmm.
And with this album, when we recorded it, it was tricky because we set a schedule beginning March of 2020, and that was about 3 days before we were going to hit record. That was when quarantine,
Mm.
mandatory lockdown started.
Yeah.
So everything got delayed. So it took forever for us to get to a point where, well, all we could do was demos, me and the
Mhm.
guitarist wearing masks in separate parts of the,
Mhm.
recording studio.
Mhm.
When we finally all got back together, um, we were able to basically record it live, have the drums mainly mic'd up perfectly,
Mhm.
and everything else we knew we'd replace.
Mhm.
But we wanted to record it live so that we had that live drum feel, and then we could come back in and add
Yeah.
our parts on top of that.
Yeah.
So we did. We hit record live, full band playing, pulled out the instruments, came back in, refined those things.
Okay.
And so what you're
Interesting.
hearing is a very live feel. It
Sure.
was the best we could do with what we had to work with at the
Sure.
time. But
Okay.
I liked that process. It was it was fun.
Mhm. Yeah. Good. Good.